That when I came new to this organization, I felt that this is like a family coming from outside. People are so welcoming, like especially in Cape Breton, we are so welcoming from people coming from outside. So that gives me hope. That gives me that, yes, I think their people are doing the right thing. So things are changing.
We do have a few designated supports, so we have an Indigenous student advisor and an Indigenous counselor on staff to support our students. As mentioned, we do draw students from the 5 Mi'kmaq communities.
Do you feel hopeful about reconciliation?
Okay, we are on the unceded Mi'kmaq territory, but what we are doing to acknowledge that, if that is just in the words and we are doing it because it sounds good, that's not a reconciliation. We have to translate that into our action, and everybody has to do that to make it a real reconciliation.
And so, each time we display a piece of artwork, it tells a story, and it allows, I think, the opportunity for people to ask questions and to better understand and to learn.
Hello, welcome, Gwe. This is the Friends United International Convention Centre in Unama'ki, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, Canada. Thanks for joining us for our 2nd annual Friends United Reconciliation Talks. I'm joined today by Vivek Saxena and Carla Arsenault, and I want to say thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting us.
Tell me first, how did you come to know about and get connected to Friends United? Carla, would you like to start?
Yeah, so I guess my first introduction to Friends United would have been in my previous role prior to being with NSCC. And I had the opportunity to meet Rolf, and had actually been through the center a number of times, had used the space, hosted meetings here, and
You were with the Cape Breton Partnership
Cape Breton
then?
Partnership, yeah. So had the opportunity to be here and to enjoy the space on a number of occasions.
Do you remember the first time you came in?
I do, and I grew up about 15 minutes from here. I have a home about 10 minutes from here, and I was in complete shock and awe, and it's a beautiful hidden gem in the woods, and most local people often don't even know it's here. And I remember that day walking away going, wow, how blessed are we to have this in this community, to have this in our backyard, and to be able to share this with the community and with the world.
It's hard to even explain. I find that I have said to so many people, I can put it into words to an extent, but then I say, I'm just going to have to take you there.
That's
You're
right.
going to have to come and see it.
You have to see here to experience the whole beauty of it.
Do you remember your first time?
Yes, actually, for me, the connection with Rolf actually it started. I came to Canada new in 2008. In 2013, I came to Cape Breton. And since then, I've been working at the State Area campus. So I know around 2017 or 18, when the college was launching our Make Way campaign, that was a fundraising campaign where we was reaching out to the community partner. Rolf was one of our first community partner who put his hand up, and they said, okay, we're going to be partner in doing something together. And Rolf came to our campus. At that time, Tom Gunn was the principal of our campus, and Tom Gunn and Rolf Bowman, they came together. And if you come to our campus, we do have our what we call as a Miami place. It's our theater, and that is all decorated by art given by the Rolf. He donated, I think, around 2017 or 16. That was the time we had that relation, and that's when I came to know about Rolf. And since then, I have visited here. It's been every time I come here, I get amazed to see all this spectacular art which we have here.
Mm-hmm. What is the reaction of people when they come into the spaces? So you're both with Nova Scotia Community College now, and when you put this art in your professional space, what reaction do you get?
If I have to say, like, it's like a magnet. Like every time, basically, I told you we do have a space where we have all this artwork, which we call as a Miami place. So whenever we have any guests or students, and especially, like I would say, our Mi'kmaq students who are coming to our campus, when they go and see this, it makes them so welcome that they feel that they're at home. And even for non-Mi'kmaq students, it's like a center of attraction, centerpiece where everybody tries to go there. So for us, basically, it's kind of an honor that whenever any visitors come to our campus, and it's at our main level, we're at the main entrance. So we always take the visitors to our Miami place, and it's a kind of a showcase for us. It's a matter of pride that we have that space which we can showcase, which has all kind of a Mi'kmaq art, and it's definitely a center of attraction for us.
Beautiful. Carla?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I guess it was a little more than that now, but when I was at the Cape Breton Partnership, Rolf had donated a series of pieces to that space, and at that time, I think we'd been in a couple of years, and the walls were gray, and there was really nothing on them, and I remember him visiting one day and said, "Oh, you really need some artwork in here." And, and since then, that entire office space has been, it's really been the pieces have been a focal point of conversation. Everyone who walks in that space is, that's what the conversation inevitably turns to, is the art on the wall. So we are now building a very large campus in downtown Sydney. So we will be relocating in the fall of 24 from NSCC Marconi campus, which is currently on Grand Lake Road, in Sydney, and we will be moving downtown to the waterfront. So we are currently in conversations around how are we going to make that space beautiful and welcoming. And to Vivek's point, we have a lot of Mi'kmaq students who attend the college, and we want them to feel welcome and feel like they are home. So really looking forward to continuing those conversations and looking at how we can bring beautiful artwork into that space.
How do you see that as a step toward reconciliation?
As I said, I'm new to Canada, so I came in 2008, and from 2013 I've been here. So since that time I've learned a lot. I've been listening. So one thing basically I've learned, there's still a lot of work to be done to what we call as a reconciliation, and I think we need to be good listener. So we need to basically learn from what they have experienced. So I think within the college, that's what we have started doing it, that let's bring that first voice experience. Like if we are developing a program, if we are doing something, we need to include those people on the table to hear from them. We can't be telling them, okay, this is what we are doing, and we feel that this is a reconciliation. That may not be what they feel is a reconciliation. We need to be a good listener, learn from them, and then do the things which they feel is going to be benefiting from them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's so important, isn't it? Rather than making decisions unilaterally.
And I think a big part of reconciliation is education and learning more about our country, about our past, and our future. And I think, having the opportunity as a college to educate those that attend our schools and who visit and who walk through the doors is an opportunity. Every time somebody comes through the front door of our buildings is really an opportunity, I think, to educate them on reconciliation and on the Mi'kmaq community, on Mi'kmaq culture, and and I grew up here, and we didn't have that education growing up. My children will have a very different education, and they already do. They know far more about Indigenous culture and Canada's past than I had ever been taught in school. And so, each time we display a piece of artwork, it tells a story, and it allows, I think, the opportunity for people to ask questions and to better understand and to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your experience as a child growing up in Cape Breton? How much contact did you have with Indigenous peoples?
I would say very little. The school that I went to, there would have been we wouldn't have had anyone from any of the Mi'kmaq communities attend our school, so it would have been very, very limited, and such a loss, you know. And so it really is, you know, I feel I'm having to educate myself as an adult in something that I really wish and should have known, you know, as a child. So
I feel the same, and I actually feel some degree of shame about not having known more, and that's an outgrowth of the commission for me. Like, as a Canadian, thinking, you know, how could I not have known this?
Shame and sadness for me, because I feel like I should have known. And, you know, now the responsibility I feel like as a parent and you know, as a principal of a college, I feel like I have a duty now to make sure that we are educating others and doing more to better understand and learn, because I certainly didn't have that growing up.
Well, some of the recommendations are specifically aimed at institutions of learning. So what else are you doing as a community college towards reconciliation?
Okay, if I may have to start on that again, as you know, the college take the whole idea of inclusive diversity and anti-racism and the path toward reconciliation very seriously. That is one of our 4 priorities of our strat plan, and within the college there we have taken a lot of different actions, and I think few of the things, if I have to mention from our campus perspective, and Carla may have more things to add, like if I have to talk about what we are doing at our campus, at Strater campus, we do have a regular presence of elders who's coming regularly at our campus, who's supporting the students as and when required. We do have Indigenous Student Service Advisor who's always there. Our population of the Indigenous students is growing every year over year, so that is a good sign that people who are coming on the campus, Mi'kmaq students, they are feeling that, okay, they are welcome, their concerns are being addressed. So I see that overall there is a kind of a trend where we see that people are feeling that they can approach the campus, they're feeling welcome to the campus. And recently, actually, we have been working with Transport Canada to do a new kind of initiative to support Mi'kmaq students, especially females and Mi'kmaq students, to get into the marine industry. So there's a whole funding coming from Transport Canada to do that, and that's specific to our campus. So that is bringing a lot of Mi'kmaq students to come to our campus, especially like the industry which is lacking so much in diversity. So we are trying to bridge that gap by supporting the Mi'kmaq students to come and get that education. So similarly, there are a lot of initiatives. We have included a traditional knowledge course in some of our programs, and we are inviting the elders. Chief Albert Marshall, he was one of the chief who came and helped us design some of our courses which we are delivering in our program. So like that, there are a lot of, we do have TP which we erect every year, and we do have a smudging space which we have in the sweat lodge. So those are the things where we showcase how we are being inclusive for all the Mi'kmaq students.
Beautiful.
We do a lot of similar things that Vivek mentioned. We do have a few designated supports, so we have an Indigenous student advisor and an Indigenous counselor on staff to support our students. As mentioned, we do draw students from the 5 Mi'kmaq communities, but predominantly for our campus, because we are based in the CBRM, they are predominantly from Eskasoni and Member 2, but we do get from all across the island. And sometimes we will run programs in community. So we, at the moment, we've been running a CCA program, a continuing care assistant program, and the faculty are traveling to community, to Eskasoni, and delivering the program there, so that those students, they are now actually, the community of Eskasoni is in the process of building a long-term care facility. So those students will then go on to work in community. So they're getting their training in community delivered by NSCC, and then will ultimately go work for the long-term care facility in their community. We do have a bus each day that brings the students into campus from Eskasoni. You know, the elder we designated elder for the campus. We also have designated seats for Indigenous students in many of our programs to make sure that no matter how big and how quickly the programs might fill up, that we always do have space available for our Indigenous students. And so we're always trying to make sure that we're doing more. At our new campus, one of the exciting features that we're really looking forward to having in the main campus center building on the waterfront, we will have an elder room right in the main building. So really looking forward to the new space and the opportunity to shape it and make it a bit different and better than our current space. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, give me an example of what the elder does when they come.
Maybe I can start with, so our elders regularly come to our campus. So when the elder comes, we do have a dedicated space where students who want to talk to the elders in private, they at least have the space. The elders have got the space for doing the smudging. Like the students can request for smudging any time of the day to go and talk to the elders, and then elder is always there to do the smudging. And it's not just the Mi'kmaq students, a lot of our own staff, sometimes they want to get to the elder and ask request for smudging, and she's more than welcome. And also like what she does, and that is really something which I appreciate, Judy, who's our elder on the campus, she likes to be out in the common spaces where people feel, okay, I don't have to take an appointment and talk to Judy in a private space. So during the lunchtime, what she does is she goes out in the cafeteria and then she will sit in one of the tables. And a lot of times students like to gather around her, listen to her stories, talk to her, and that's why basically how people, usually the Mi'kmaq students who may feel, okay, I'm not really comfortable bringing my concern to the instructor, I don't think maybe the instructor understands. So sometimes our elders listen to those concerns, and she's so good, she's going to be talking to the student service advisor or student manager of student services and say, okay, this is what I'm hearing, can you try to address this? And that's how we feel that is so important, to have the presence of elder, to get to know really. Sometimes that is kind of I would say one of the factor of when we talk about student success, and sometimes students may not be able to express their concern in front of the instructor or the academic chair, but if they're talking to the elders, we come to know those concerns through the elder, and then we can address and then resolve the concerns.
Wow, that's really powerful, especially just to be there among the community members. But also, I love the idea that Indigenous and non-Indigenous members of the community can go and have a smudging, and it's such a celebratory thing.
Yeah, ours would be similar as well. And like I said, we do have the student advisor and the counselor that are Indigenous, and they would do similar things as well with the smudging and be there to provide any student supports really. And often they have those in-community contacts, and they're able to help and to guide the students.
Vivek, you came from India in 2008, I believe you said. What has been your impression? Were you surprised to see the relationship in Canada between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people?
To tell you the truth, yes, it was really an eye-opener for me when I started learning about the relationship between the Canada and the Mi'kmaq and the Indigenous people. I never knew, like I grew up in India, and the history of India is also like we were colonized by British for over 200 years. So I knew what the racism looks like. I knew what the oppression looks like. So when I came, I didn't have any kind of a background about like the residential schools in Canada were running till the early 90s. Like when you hear that, like, and whatever image I had about Canada growing up, that it's such an inclusive country, we are welcoming, we encouraged diversity and inclusion. And when on the other side, I'm hearing the story that the residential schools were going till early 90s. So that really boggles my mind. Like, how can a country which exterior, like you see the image of such a welcoming country, but still like we had such a negative history. So that was a really learning moment for me. And since then I've been, as I said earlier, my approach has been to listen and learn. And sometimes like we feel, okay, if we need to learn more about the culture of a certain community, they need to tell us about, okay, what they are feeling. But I think we have to take responsibility ourselves that, okay, if we don't know something, we need to go and do our research ourselves rather than asking, okay, what you're feeling about being suppressed and how we can support you, or tell me about your story about it. So I think a responsibility lies on us to do our research and see how we can learn the history and how we can basically support the people who have been oppressed for so many years.
Not unlike the Black Lives Matter movement, where, white people have been told it's not our job to educate you. Yeah. And that's what I'm hearing from you. It's incumbent upon all of us to research and to understand. Yeah. That's a perspective of a new Canadian. What's your perspective as a Canadian looking at what we've learned over the past 10 years?
I've had the opportunity to be in lots of conversations, in circles across the province over the last number of years, and it's been humbling, I will say, embarrassing, actually, if I'm being honest, completely. I felt a lot of shame and a lot of I think, embarrassment. Because I didn't know what was happening in my backyard. I really didn't, and there's no excuse for that. So I feel like a sense of ownership in that as a Canadian, and shock, right? And so I feel an extra sense of duty with 3 young children that I really need to make sure that they have a different view, and they do. They absolutely, they are learning things in school that we had never had any exposure to, and so I do find myself often now when I hear somebody make a comment, things, and that comes out maybe the wrong way, or that maybe they meant to say it that way, or maybe they didn't mean to say it that way, and I do find myself even calling people out on things sometimes where, that maybe not appropriate, or definitely not appropriate, and so I guess for me, embarrassment that this country that I have always felt so in love with, that, and always saw it in this very idealistic way, that we are not perfect. Canada is not perfect, and we've got a lot of work to do. But also, I think a sense of pride in recognizing that we are starting to get there, and we have come a long way I feel like in a very short time. We've got a very, very long way to go. But I do feel like we are open as a country, and this wake-up call, if you will, through the report and so on. I think that the Commission has been, it's good for Canada. I'm glad it's all out, and I hope that we continue to work through that and to educate ourselves and to be better.
You talk about being in those gatherings and feelings of embarrassment or shame. On the positive side, what did you witness and observe and feel in those gatherings that you admired or loved even?
I've been in some blanket ceremonies and things that were quite emotional. The honesty and the raw truth, I think, that come out of those things have also been quite empowering and quite. I think the friendships that we are starting to form with communities that we just didn't have connection to. The thing that has separated us, I think, to a degree, is bringing us closer together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, actually, engagement is really the word, isn't it? And I think that there is power in that sense of shame or shock, even you use the word, because that can be an engine for change. That energy can make you go, oh, I really got to do something. Whereas before you might have been complacent because you didn't know, or you didn't really understand. So I think that's beautiful. Do you think that it's important for every Canadian it's one thing to have a grand scope of reconciliation in Canada, but do you think it's important for each of us in our own way to approach it? Reconciliation?
Oh, sure. I think we all have to take responsibility on that. Like as we mentioned about what as a college we are doing. So I think everybody has to take that responsibility to do their part. And if we are going to move towards that, that's the only way we can do the real reconciliation. And again, we need to learn from each other. We need to be a good listener. And again, as I said, like everybody has to take the responsibility. It should not be that, okay, the NSCC as an organization, they have a responsibility of taking on the reconciliation, and we are going to watch from outside. Mm-hmm. But I think everybody has to take that responsibility, that even on the daily basis, like if we are going to basically make an acknowledgement about, okay, we are on the unceded Mi'kmaq territory, but what we are doing to acknowledge that, if that is just in the words and we are doing it because it sounds good, that's not a reconciliation. We have to translate that into our action, and everybody has to do that to make it a real reconciliation.
I agree.
And I think, it's every individual, it's my job as a college principal, it's my job as a parent, it's my job as a human to do this and to make sure that I'm continuously learning, and there are so many resources out there. I've always have a stack of books, and there's online courses. There's so many ways that people can easily educate themselves. There's no reason that they can't. And I think for those of us who are in a position in our jobs, in our lives, that we have the ability to influence, we need to do that too. And to change policy and to change practice within organizations. But it really does come to every single person, whether it's at the dinner table at home, or with the sports team that you coach, or it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm. It's true, from the individual to the community to the organization to the government. And we can't just expect the government to do it, we do have to bring pressure to bear, for sure. Do you feel hopeful about reconciliation?
Oh, sure. In even my short time in Canada, I mentioned earlier about the history which I learned when I came to Canada, but equally on the flip side, I also know the actions people have been taking throughout these last few years, and I know that is making a difference. I just see within our organization, I know Carla has just joined, and one example which I give is that when I came new to this organization, I felt that this is like a family coming from outside. People are so welcoming, especially in Cape Breton, we are so welcoming from people coming from outside. So that gives me hope. Mm-hmm. That gives me that, yes, I think their people are doing the right thing. So things are changing. So if you ask me as an outsider who's coming to live in Cape Breton, I was definitely made welcome. And I think that's a good sign. That things are moving in the right direction.
I will always feel bad that it took this long, and that I'm an adult having to learn what I'm learning with things I should have known as a child, and that should never have happened. But I am incredibly hopeful that we will, that things are changing, and they are changing everywhere, really. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, we had planted white birch trees on the campus to recognize the murdered Indigenous women, and had a small, a smudging ceremony on the campus. There's a lot of work being done, kind of at a little, in small pockets and in large things, and every step counts, and every step I think will lead us to where we need to go and to be as a country.
Well, I can feel the passion you both have for it. And so not only do I say thank you for joining us today, but also thank you for the work you're doing with the Nova Scotia Community College, and I'm sure individually in your community every day.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much for having us.